The great hall of the United Galactic Community was silent as the ancient keeper of records floated to the center of the chamber. Xylox 7, a being of pure light contained within a crystalline shell, had served as the keeper for over 3,000 standard years. In all that time, he had never seen the council so divided. "We have reached the 980th species to petition for membership," Xylox 7 announced, his voice echoing through the minds of all present. "They call themselves humans. They come from a world designated as Class 12. A wave of murmurs spread through the assembled delegates. Class 12 worlds were the stuff of nightmares. Most civilized species came from Class 1 through Class 4 worlds, peaceful places with stable climates, calm oceans, and gentle atmospheres. The highest class world to ever produce a spacefaring species had been Class 7, and those beings had barely survived their own planet long enough to escape it. Class 12 was almost theoretical. It was a designation reserved for worlds so hostile that life should not exist there at all. Ambassador Threx of the Velanti Collective raised one of her 4 delicate arms. Her species had evolved on a Class 2 world where the most dangerous creature was a small swimming thing that could give a mild sting. The Velanti were considered brave because they sometimes went outside during light rain. "Surely there is a mistake," she said, her translator converting her musical tones into standard galactic speech. "No species could evolve on a Class 12 world. The radiation alone would destroy all organic matter within generations." Xylox 7 accessed the ancient records that had been transmitted by the human delegation. The humans have provided extensive documentation of their homeworld, which they call Earth. The data has been verified by 17 independent scanning stations. There is no mistake. Earth is a Class 12 Deathworld. The keeper projected images into the center of the hall. The delegates watched in growing horror as they saw the reality of Earth. Massive storms that could span entire continents. Mountains that rose so high they touched the void of space. Oceans that covered most of the surface, filled with creatures that existed only to consume other creatures. "Their star bombards their world with radiation constantly," Xylox 7 continued. "Their planet experiences regular geological upheavals. Their atmosphere contains a highly corrosive gas that makes up over 20% of their air supply." "Oxygen," whispered Ambassador Crix of the Moldari Federation. His gelatinous body quivered with fear. "They breathe oxygen. That is a poison." "To the humans, it is necessary for survival," the keeper replied. "Their bodies have adapted to not only survive this toxic gas but to require it. Without oxygen, they die within minutes." More images appeared. The delegates saw Earth's wildlife, massive predators with rows of teeth, tiny insects that carried diseases capable of killing millions, plants that produced toxins, parasites that lived inside other creatures. The entire biosphere seemed designed to cause death. "And yet the humans have not only survived," Xylox 7 said, "they have become the dominant species on their world. They have built cities, developed technology, and reached for the stars. They stand before us today, asking to join our community as the 980th member species." High Chancellor Vornes, the elected leader of the United Galactic Community, rose from his seat. He was a tall being with blue skin and 3 eyes that could see in multiple spectrums. His species, the Arcsani, had led the community for the past 400 years because they were considered the wisest and most diplomatic of all member races. "I have reviewed the human petition personally," Vornes said. "I have also met with their delegation. I must tell you all that they are unlike any species we have ever encountered." "In what way?" asked Ambassador Threx. Vornes seemed to search for the right words. "They are friendly, aggressively friendly. When their lead delegate met me, she reached out and touched my hand, physical contact. I nearly expired from shock." Several delegates made sounds of disgust or fear. Physical contact between species was considered highly inappropriate in galactic society. It was dangerous, unpredictable, and carried the risk of disease transmission. But here is the strangest part, Vornes continued. She meant it as a gesture of peace. In human culture, touching hands is how they greet each other. They call it a handshake. They do it with everyone, even complete strangers. Madness, said Ambassador Crix. Complete madness. Perhaps, Vornes agreed. But there is more. The humans do not simply survive on their Deathworld. They thrive on it. They have developed a concept they call fun, which involves deliberately seeking out dangerous activities for entertainment. They climb mountains. They dive into their toxic oceans. They jump from aircraft with nothing but a piece of fabric to slow their fall. The hall erupted in chaos. Delegates shouted and gestured. Some called for the humans to be immediately rejected. Others demanded they be quarantined. A few suggested that Earth itself should be destroyed before the humans could spread their dangerous ways across the galaxy. Xylox 7 waited for the noise to die down before speaking again. There is one more thing the Council should know. The humans are not aware that they come from a Deathworld. To them, Earth is simply home. They consider it a pleasant place to live. They complain when the weather is too hot or too cold, but they do not understand that their normal conditions would kill most species in the galaxy within hours. High Chancellor Vornes nodded gravely. This is why I have called for a full council vote. The humans present us with an unprecedented situation. If we accept them, we bring a Deathworld species into our community for the first time. If we reject them, we turn away a people who have achieved what no other species has ever done. They have conquered a Class 12 world through nothing but determination and adaptability. The vote was scheduled for 3 standard days later. In that time, the human delegation was kept in a specially designed isolation chamber. The chamber was built to simulate Earth conditions, which meant it was filled with oxygen, kept at a temperature that would cause most species to overheat, and had gravity that was almost twice the galactic standard. Through observation screens, the delegates watched the humans with a mixture of terror and fascination. There were 5 of them, 3 females and 2 males, though the differences between human genders were so subtle that most aliens could not tell them apart. The lead delegate was a woman named Sarah Chen. She had dark hair, brown eyes, and a smile that she displayed almost constantly. The other delegates found this smile disturbing. In most galactic cultures, showing teeth was a threat display, but for humans it was an expression of happiness. Sarah spent the 3 days waiting patiently. She read documents about the United Galactic Community. She exercised by running in place and doing something called push-ups. She talked with her fellow humans and laughed frequently. The sound of human laughter was strange to alien ears. It was loud, sudden, and entirely unpredictable. On the 3rd day, Ambassador Threx gathered her courage and approached the observation screen. She activated the communication system. "Human Delegate Chen," she said, "I wish to speak with you." Sarah looked up and smiled, that terrible teeth-filled smile. "Of course. I've been hoping someone would come talk to us. It's been a bit lonely in here." Threx found it hard to believe that a Deathworlder could feel lonely. Such creatures should be cold, efficient, and without need for social connection. Yet Sarah's voice was warm and genuine. "I have a question," Threx said. "On your world you face constant danger. Your weather tries to kill you. Your animals try to kill you. Even your smallest life forms try to kill you. How do you survive? How does any human survive long enough to grow to adulthood?" Sarah thought about this for a moment. "I guess we just don't give up. When something tries to kill us, we find a way around it. We build shelters against the weather. We hunt or tame the dangerous animals. We created medicine to fight diseases. We're really stubborn that way." "But why?" Threx pressed. "Why continue fighting when the odds are so against you?" Sarah's smile faded slightly and her expression became serious. "Because we love life. We love our families, our friends, our communities. We want to see what tomorrow brings. We want to learn, to grow, to experience new things. Giving up just isn't in our nature." Threx did not know how to respond. She had never met a species that loved life so fiercely that they would fight an entire planet to keep it. In that moment, she began to understand why the humans had made it to the stars. It was not despite their Deathworld. It was because of it. Every generation of humans had been forged by survival. Every individual was descended from countless ancestors who had refused to die. The vote was tomorrow. Threx knew what she would decide. The council chamber was filled beyond capacity on the day of the vote. Every member species had sent representatives. Even the ancient ones, beings who had been part of the community since its founding 10,000 years ago, had emerged from their long meditations to witness this historic moment. Xylox 7 called the session to order. "We gather today to decide whether humanity shall become the 980th species to join the United Galactic Community. Before we vote, the human delegation has requested the opportunity to address the Council. High Chancellor, do you grant this request?" Vornes looked out at the assembled delegates. Many of them radiated fear. Some radiated hostility. But a few, including Ambassador Threx, seemed curious. "The request is granted," Vornes said. "Delegate Chen, you may speak." The doors to the chamber opened, and Sarah Chen walked in alone. She wore a simple blue outfit that the humans called a suit. Her steps were steady despite the lower gravity, and her expression was calm. She walked to the center of the chamber and looked around at the thousands of alien beings watching her. "Thank you for this opportunity," she said. "I know that many of you are afraid of us. I understand why. We come from a world that would kill most of you within seconds. We breathe poison. We drink a liquid that is used as an industrial solvent on many of your worlds. We think temperatures that would give you severe burns are just a bit warm." She paused, letting her words settle. "But I want you to know something about humans. We are not looking for enemies. We have enough of those back home. We came to the stars because we wanted to find friends." A murmur ran through the crowd. The word friends had different meanings in different cultures, but the translation systems did their best to convey the concept. "On Earth we have a saying," Sarah continued. "No man is an island. It means that no person can survive alone. We need each other. We need community. We need to belong to something greater than ourselves. When we looked up at the stars, we hoped that we would find others who felt the same way." Ambassador Crix of the Moldari Federation spoke up. "And what would you offer to this community? What benefit do humans bring?" Sarah smiled. "We offer everything we are, our determination, our creativity, our refusal to accept the impossible. For millions of years, we lived on a world that tried to kill us every single day. We did not just survive. We built civilizations. We created art and music and literature. We reached out beyond our atmosphere and touched the moon with our bare hands." She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small piece of fabric. It was rectangular, with stripes of red and white, and a blue square filled with white stars. "This is a banner from my country on Earth," Sarah said. "It represents the values my people hold dear: freedom, courage, unity. But today I am not just speaking for my country. I am speaking for all of humanity, every nation, every culture, every person who has ever looked up at the night sky and wondered if we were alone." She held up the banner. "If you accept us, we will carry this banner not just for Earth, but for the entire galactic community. We will stand beside you, fight beside you, and die beside you if necessary. Because that is what humans do for their friends." The chamber was silent. No one moved, no one spoke. Then slowly, Ambassador Threx raised one of her 4 arms. "I wish to speak," she said. Vornes nodded. "You may proceed." Threx floated forward until she was near Sarah. The human did not step back or show any sign of fear. She simply waited. "3 days ago, I asked you how humans survive on your Deathworld," Threx said. "You told me that you refuse to give up, that you love life too much to let it be taken from you, At first, I did not understand. My species has never faced such challenges. We have lived in safety for our entire existence. She turned to face the council. But now I think I understand something important. We have built a community of 979 species who have never truly known struggle. We are comfortable. We are safe. And perhaps we have become weak because of it. Murmurs spread through the crowd, some angry, some thoughtful. The humans offer us something we do not have, Threx continued. They offer us their strength, their resilience, their ability to face any challenge and refuse to be defeated. I believe that rejecting them would be the greatest mistake this community has ever made. She raised her hand in the gesture of voting. I vote to accept humanity into the United Galactic Community. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then another hand rose. Then another. Soon, hands and appendages and tentacles were rising throughout the chamber. The vote was not unanimous, but it was decisive. Xylox 7 counted the results and projected them for all to see. By a margin of 712 to 267, the motion passes. Humanity is hereby accepted as the 980th member species of the United Galactic Community. Sarah Chen stood in the center of the chamber, tears rolling down her face. In human culture, tears could mean sadness or joy. These were tears of joy. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You will not regret this decision, I promise you that." High Chancellor Vornes descended from his seat and approached Sarah. He extended his hand in the human gesture of greeting. His staff gasped at the sight, but Vornes did not hesitate. Sarah took his hand and shook it gently. "Welcome to the community, Delegate Chen," Vornes said. "May this be the beginning of a long and prosperous partnership." As the two species made their first official contact, no one knew what the future would hold. But in that moment, something had changed in the galaxy. The Deathworld species had joined the stars, and nothing would ever be the same. 50 standard years passed after humanity's acceptance into the United Galactic Community. In that time, everything changed. At first, the other species kept their distance from humans. They were too strange, too dangerous, too unpredictable. Trade agreements were minimal. Cultural exchanges were rare. The humans were members in name only, tolerated but not truly welcomed. Then the Kreth invaded. The Kreth were not part of the community. They came from beyond the mapped sectors, a species of warriors who had conquered their own galaxy and now sought to expand into new territory. They were large, heavily armored, and completely without mercy. Their ships appeared at the edge of community space and began a systematic campaign of destruction. The first world to fall was Velox 3, home to 4 billion peaceful beings who had never known war. The Kreth killed them all in less than a standard day. The next target was Moldari Prime, the heart of Ambassador Crix's Federation. The Moldari had no weapons, no defenses, no way to fight back. The community fleet gathered to defend them, but it was a joke. The ships were designed for exploration and trade, not combat. Their weapons were meant to deal with asteroids and space debris, not an invasion fleet. The battle lasted 8 hours before the community forces were scattered and broken. Then the humans arrived. No one had asked them to come. No one had expected them to come. The humans had spent 50 years being ignored and dismissed by the galactic community. They had every reason to stay home and let the other species fight their own battles. But that was not what humans did. The human fleet was small compared to the Kreth Armada, only 300 ships against over 3,000. But these were not exploration vessels. These were warships, designed and built by a species that had spent its entire existence fighting for survival. Admiral James Chen, grandson of the legendary Sarah Chen, commanded the fleet from the bridge of the flagship Earth's Hope. He looked at the tactical display and saw the impossible odds arrayed against him. "Admiral," his tactical officer said, "the Kreth outnumber us 10 to 1. Our shields cannot withstand their weapons for more than a few minutes. This battle cannot be won." Chen smiled. It was the same smile his grandmother had worn when she first addressed the Galactic Council, the same smile that had terrified delegates 50 years ago. "You're thinking like an alien," he said. "You're looking at the numbers and calculating the odds, but we're not aliens, we're human, and humans don't calculate odds, we just refuse to lose." He opened a channel to the entire fleet. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen. Today we face an enemy that has never known defeat. They believe they are unbeatable, they believe we are weak, they believe wrong." His voice hardened. "We are the children of Earth. Our ancestors survived ice ages, plagues, famines, and wars. They crossed oceans in wooden boats. They climbed mountains that touched the sky. They put a man on the moon with technology less powerful than a children's toy. And today, we will show the Kreth what happens when you threaten our friends." The human fleet engaged. What happened next was recorded by every observation device in the sector and replayed across the galaxy for centuries afterward. The humans did not fight like any species the Kreth had ever encountered. They did not form defensive lines or try to protect their ships. They charged directly into the heart of the enemy formation, their weapons blazing. The Kreth destroyed dozens of human ships in the first minutes of the battle, but for every ship that fell, 2 Kreth vessels went with it. The humans did not retreat. They did not surrender. They kept fighting, kept pushing, kept dying, and kept killing. Admiral Chen's flagship was hit multiple times. Fires burned in the corridors. Entire sections lost atmosphere, but the ship kept moving forward and Chen kept giving orders. "Target their command vessel," he said. "Everything we have." The Earth's Hope and 7 other human ships concentrated their fire on the Kreth flagship. They poured every weapon they had into its shields. When the shields finally fell, they kept firing. The Kreth commander tried to retreat, but it was too late. The explosion was visible from Moldari Prime. When the Kreth saw their flagship destroyed, something broke in their formation. These were warriors who had never experienced defeat. They did not know how to respond. Some tried to fight on. Others tried to flee. The coordinated assault became a chaotic mess. The human fleet did not let up. They chased down the fleeing ships. They destroyed the ones that stayed to fight. By the time it was over, the Kreth armada was reduced to less than 300 vessels, and those were scattered across multiple sectors. Of the 300 human ships that had entered the battle, only 87 survived. Over 10,000 human lives were lost, but Moldari Prime was saved. The community was saved. Admiral Chen stood on the bridge of his crippled ship and watched the last of the Kreth run. His uniform was torn and burned. Blood ran down his face from a wound on his forehead, but he was smiling. "Signal the community," he said. "Tell them the threat is over, and tell them that humanity honors its friendships." The message was received across the galaxy. On world after world, beings who had dismissed humanity as dangerous primitives watched recordings of the battle. They saw humans die to protect species that had never truly accepted them. They saw a people who fought not for territory or resources, but because it was the right thing to do. Ambassador Threx, now ancient and near the end of her natural life, watched from her retirement home on Velonti Prime. Tears streamed from her multiple eyes as she saw what the humans had done. "I knew," she whispered. "The first time I spoke with Sarah Chen, I knew. They are unlike anyone we have ever met, and we are blessed to call them friends." The aftermath of the Kreth War changed everything. Human delegates were suddenly welcome on every world in the community. Human traders were sought after for their reliability and fairness. Human engineers were hired to redesign the community defense grid. Human diplomats were called upon to mediate disputes that had lasted centuries. But the most important change was in how the other species saw humanity. Before the war, humans were the dangerous newcomers who breathed poison and came from a death world. After the war, They were the heroes who had saved civilization itself. High Chancellor Vornes, still leading the community despite his advancing age, called for a special session of the full council. Every member species sent their highest-ranking representatives. The Grand Chamber was filled to capacity. "We gather today to recognize a debt that can never be repaid," Vornes said. 50 years ago, we voted to accept humanity into our community. Many of us did so with reluctance. Some of us hoped they would fail and disappear. We were wrong. He gestured, and a holographic display appeared showing images from the Kreth War. When our hour of greatest need arrived, only one species answered the call. Only one species stood between our people and extinction. The humans did not come because we asked. They came because they believed it was right. Admiral Chen had been invited to attend the session. He stood in a place of honor near the center of the chamber, wearing his dress uniform. The scars from the battle were still visible on his face. He had refused surgery to remove them, saying they were a reminder of the price of friendship. "Admiral Chen," Vornes continued, "your people have shown us what true courage means. You have taught us that strength is not measured in weapons or numbers, but in the willingness to sacrifice for others. On behalf of the entire United Galactic community, I offer our deepest gratitude." The chamber erupted in applause, each species using whatever form of appreciation their biology allowed. Some clapped, some clicked, some hummed, some flashed colors across their skin. The sound was unlike anything that had ever been heard in the Grand Chamber. Chen waited for the noise to die down before speaking. "Thank you, High Chancellor, but I must tell you something. We did not fight the Kreth to earn your gratitude. We did not fight them to prove ourselves. We fought them because that is who we are." He looked around the chamber at the thousands of alien faces watching him. "My grandmother was the first human to address this council. She told you that humans love life, that we refuse to give up, that we will fight for the things we believe in. What she did not tell you is that we also love others. We form bonds that cannot be broken. We call it friendship, but it is more than that. It is family." He paused, his voice growing thick with emotion. "When we joined this community, many of you did not want us. You were afraid. You were suspicious. You kept us at arm's length for 50 years, but we never stopped considering you our family. We never stopped being willing to die for you, because that is what family does." Ambassador Crix, who had once been so afraid of humans that he could barely look at them, floated forward. "Admiral Chen, the Moldari Federation owes its existence to your people. If there is anything we can do to repay this debt, you need only ask." Chen shook his head. "There is no debt, there never was. We are all members of the same community. We protect each other. That is the only payment we need." In the weeks that followed, a new symbol began appearing throughout the galaxy. It was the human banner that Sarah Chen had shown the Council 50 years ago, but it had been modified. The stripes and stars remained, but they were surrounded by a circle of 979 additional symbols, one for each of the other species in the community. The banner was called the Unity Standard. It hung in council chambers, trading posts, and public spaces across known space. It represented the new vision of what the community could be. Not just a collection of species living in the same galaxy, but a true family bound by shared purpose. Humans were now everywhere. They served on mixed-species crews. They lived on alien worlds. They married and had children with beings that looked nothing like them. The technology of genetic modification made such unions possible, and the bonds of friendship made them common. But something else was changing too. The other species of the community were learning from humanity. They were becoming braver. They were taking risks they never would have considered before. They were fighting for things they believed in. The Velanti, once so timid that they feared light rain, formed their own defense force. The Moldari, whose bodies were too soft for physical combat, developed a form of psychological warfare that could disable enemy minds from a distance. The Arxani, who had led through wisdom alone, began training warriors to protect their wisdom. "You have done something remarkable," Vornes told Admiral Chen in a private meeting. "You have not just saved us from the Kreth, you have transformed us into something new." Chen smiled. "We didn't transform you, we just reminded you of something you already knew. Life is precious. It is worth fighting for, and no one should have to fight alone." Vornes considered this. "The Kreth will return eventually. They are not the type to accept defeat." "We know," Chen said. "But next time, they won't be facing just the humans. They'll be facing the entire United Galactic community, and they will learn what we already know." "What is that?" Chen's smile grew wider. "That the galaxy belongs to those who love it enough to fight for it." 100 years after humanity joined the United Galactic community, the Kreth returned. They came with a fleet 5 times larger than before. 10,000 ships, the combined military might of an entire galactic empire, descended upon community space with a single purpose: revenge. They had spent a century rebuilding, planning, and preparing for this moment. This time, they swore, there would be no defeat. But the community that waited for them was not the same one they had attacked before. The new High Chancellor was a human named Elena Reyes, the first of her species to hold the position. She had been elected by an overwhelming margin, the result of a century of humanity proving itself not just as warriors, but as diplomats, scientists, artists, and friends. When the Kreth fleet was detected, Chancellor Reyes addressed the entire community through the unified communication network that now connected all known space. "Citizens of the United Galactic community," she said, "the Kreth have returned. 100 years ago they believed they could destroy us. They were wrong. Today they believe they can succeed where they once failed. They are wrong again." Her image was broadcast on every world, every station, every ship in the community. Beings of 1,000 different species watched and listened. 100 years ago, humanity stood alone against the Kreth because no one else was ready to fight. That is no longer true. Today, we stand together. Today, the full strength of the community rises to defend itself. Today, we show the Kreth and any other enemy what happens when 980 species unite as one. The community fleet that assembled was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Over 20,000 ships gathered at the edge of community space, representing every member species. There were massive Arxani command carriers, fast Velanti striker craft, Moldari mine ships that could attack enemy crews directly, and hundreds of other designs from dozens of worlds. And at the center of the formation, flying the Unity standard from every mast, was the human fleet. Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen III, great-granddaughter of the original Sarah Chen, commanded from the bridge of the flagship New Hope. She looked out at the assembled armada and felt a surge of pride that brought tears to her eyes. "This is what my grandmother dreamed of," she whispered. "This is why she came to the stars." The Kreth fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel and arranged itself for battle. Their commander, a massive warrior named Kreth Zul, surveyed the opposing force with contempt. "They have gathered their entire civilization to oppose us," he said. "Good. When we destroy them here, there will be nothing left to resist." He opened a channel to the community fleet. "I am Kreth Zul, Supreme Commander of the Kreth Empire. You have one opportunity to surrender. Lay down your weapons and we will grant you quick deaths. Resist, and we will make your suffering legendary." Admiral Chen III responded. "I am Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen III, descendant of the woman who first brought humanity to the stars. I have a counteroffer." Kreth Zul laughed. "A human, of course a human. Your species is too stupid to know when it is beaten. What is your offer?" "Turn around and go home. Never return to community space. If you agree, we will let you live. If you refuse, we will destroy you so completely that in 1,000 years, no one will remember the Kreth ever existed." The Kreth commander's laughter echoed across the communication channels. arrogant to the end. Very well, human. Let us see if your alliance is as strong as your words. The battle began. What followed was the largest naval engagement in galactic history. Thousands of ships from both sides clashed in a sphere of space 10 light minutes across. Weapons fire created artificial stars. Exploding vessels painted the void in colors that had no names. But this was not the desperate fight of 100 years ago. The community fleet did not simply charge and hope for the best. They had learned from human tactics. They had trained together. They had become a unified fighting force. The Velanti strikers harassed the Kreth flanks, drawing fire away from the main formation. The Moldari mineships attacked the crews of enemy vessels, causing confusion and panic. The Arxani carriers launched waves of drones that overwhelmed Kreth point defenses. And through it all, the human ships drove forward like a spear aimed at the heart of the enemy fleet. Kreth watched his forces begin to collapse and could not believe what he was seeing. "Impossible," he snarled. "These are prey species. They should be fleeing in terror." "They are not prey," one of his subordinates said. "Not anymore. The humans have changed them." The battle lasted 12 hours. When it was over, the Kreth fleet had been reduced to less than 500 ships, and those were in full retreat. The community had won. But the cost was high. Over 8,000 community vessels had been destroyed. Millions of beings from hundreds of species had given their lives. As the survivors regrouped, they found themselves too exhausted to celebrate. Admiral Chen III broadcast one final message. "The Kreth are broken. They will not trouble us again. Today we have proven that no force in the galaxy can stand against a united community. Today we have honored the memory of all those who came before us. Today we are truly one people." Chancellor Reyes addressed the community later that day. Her face was drawn with grief and exhaustion, but her voice was strong. "We have won," she said, "but we must never forget the price of this victory. Every species in our community lost sons and daughters today. Humans died alongside Velanti. Moldari died alongside Arxani. We bled together, and in that shared sacrifice we became something greater than we were before." She held up the unity standard, the banner that had come to represent everything the community stood for. This flag once belonged to one country on one world. Today, it belongs to all of us. It represents our shared commitment to each other, our promise that no member of this community will ever stand alone. On Earth, which had grown from a single planet to the heart of a system-spanning civilization, people gathered in public squares to watch the broadcast. They cheered when the victory was announced. They wept when the casualties were listed. And they felt, perhaps for the first time in human history, that they were truly part of something larger than themselves. In the rebuilt Grand Chamber of the United Galactic Community, now located on a space station that orbited no single world but belonged to all of them, a new monument was unveiled. It was a massive sculpture showing representatives of every member species standing together, their appendages linked, their faces turned toward the stars. At the center of the sculpture, holding the unity standard above her head, was a bronze figure of Sarah Chen, the woman who had started it all. A plaque at the base of the monument read, 980 species, one community, one family, forever. The Deathworld species had come to the stars looking for friends. They had found something better. They had found a galaxy worth fighting for, and they had shown every other species in existence what it truly meant to be human. The story did not end there, of course. Stories never really end. The community continued to grow, eventually welcoming thousands more species into its ranks. There were more challenges, more battles, more sacrifices, but through it all, the spirit that humanity had brought to the stars remained. The galaxy had been changed forever by a single planet full of stubborn, dangerous, impossibly determined beings who refused to accept that anything was impossible. And somewhere across the vast reaches of space and time, Sarah Chen smiled.